Hi everyone, and welcome to Cooking with Robyn. My name's Robyn Gray, and I'm director of Camrose Public Library. So we've been trying to think of new ways to reach out to patrons in these times of self-isolation, and one thing that brings people together is food. So I've decided to start this program to try and, share some of my favorite recipes and tips and tricks. So the first thing that I want to make today is corn carbonara, because I always have a ton of corn in my freezer and lots of other frozen vegetables, and trying to minimize those trips to the grocery store means kind of using what's on hand. So in this case, a ton of corn. So this recipe is coming out of Chloe Flavor by Chloe Coscarelli. I really like all of her cookbooks. Really affordable, really cheap, really easy to do, really great instructions. So here's supposedly what the recipe will look like. We'll see if it actually does. So I've already put the pasta on to boil, and it's getting pretty close to being ready. So it called for about 1 pound of spaghetti. I used linguine because I love linguine. I don't know, the thick texture, I guess. So I already set aside 1 cup of corn because it says at the very end of when the pasta is boiling to add the first cup of corn to that so that it thaws. So I'll mix that in there and let the corn start to thaw out. Now, the next thing that it says is, in a large skillet, heat the olive oil over medium-high heat. So it called for about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then it said to add onion and cook for 5 to 7 minutes until softened. I'm not a big onion fan, so I actually decided to skip that step. I don't really like adding onion to things. I do add a little bit of onion powder to get a bit of the flavor, but I'm not a big fan of onions. So I'm skipping right to the next step, which is to add all at once, so 4 garlic cloves, 2 tablespoons of pure maple syrup, 2 teaspoons of sea salt, 1/4 a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. And so I've mixed them all up in this bowl already, so all of those different ingredients. So the skillet is just heating right now, and I did put some olive oil in there so that this won't stick. And so my next step is I'm going to add these things to that and then cook for about 3 minutes until heated through. So that's what I'm going to do next. I was a little skeptical about this recipe because it calls for maple syrup in a savory recipe, but so far it smells pretty good, like especially with the garlic in there. I have the heat on at about 7, so I'll give that just a few minutes. The next step is going to be transfer the mixture to a blender or food processor, and then add 1/4 cup of water plus more as needed, as well as 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I've actually already got the lemon juice and the water in here ready to go. Yes, so the next thing is to wait for this mixture right here to heat up. As well, I'm going to now drain the pasta. Okay, that's done. Now this mixture is starting to bubble over here. Okay, and now I'm going to put it in the blender. Probably really ungracefully, so please forgive me. Trying not to make a mess. Also, while I'm putting hot things in the blender, just a safety note, if you're ever making soup that calls for it to be blended and you have to use your blender as opposed to having something that blends it right in the pot, be sure to never, ever, ever load it up very much. So that steam really will just pop the lid right off of a blender. So make sure that you're kind of loading it in a 1/2 cup at a time and not just filling it up to the brim the way that you could with a smoothie. Just a Okay. So, in fact, I might even pop this little thing just a little bit, just in case there's steam that needs to get out. Okay, so I'm gonna stir this up. Okay, so like I mentioned, I could have left it probably a little longer to get a bit smoother, but as it is, it's looking pretty creamy. I'm quite impressed. Anyway, it's so it's got kind of that creamy texture to it. Had minimal ingredients, as I said, and it's just kind of nice to have different ways to prepare pasta. So for some of the toppings that are listed here, could be fresh ground black pepper, chopped fresh basil, or halved cherry tomatoes. So I'm not going to add those things right now, just in the interest of time, but please know that those are things that you could add. So yeah, as much as COVID has been awful in many, many ways, I'm personally enjoying this chance to kind of use up the ingredients that I have in my house. So I hope that you're having similar culinary adventures, plus having the time, obviously, to try new recipes. Please feel free to let me know if there's other things you'd like to see made. Yeah, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend or week. Thanks. Bye.